Now, it's no secret that I prefer physically released media. It's just not a secret on this channel, I'm sure by now. And Nate, you're the same way. We are old men in our late 20s. To the internet, we're on our way out the door into the home, which is probably Reddit at this point. Or, no, actually Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook's gone, probably.
We'll be exiled to Facebook as the old folks home of the internet. But I wanted to talk about GoldenEye 007, not GoldenEye 007 Reloaded, one of Nate's favorite games of all time.
It is.
The old Pierce Brosnan one, because this game is coming back on modern architecture, and it's shocking, considering I have a few videos to make about this, but the rights issues around GoldenEye have been insane. And because of that, there's a little bit of an issue I have with it. The versions are going to be different, which is the start of the weirdness, where Nintendo Switch's version will have multiplayer online, and Xbox's will not. However, Xbox has achievements, and Switch doesn't, because that's just the architecture of Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be some version differences here between that, but I think the important common thing with this is that in the past, there was always the worry with digital that something can be pulled later. But if you bought it, you can always reinstall it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go online and back in the day, you bought a digital copy of a Bond game or whatever, you can reinstall that. That's just there. The problem now is that that's actually not even the case anymore. And people always argue it is when we talk about digital. They always say, well, you can always go back and re-download it. With the Xbox Game Pass wall and the Nintendo Switch Online paywall, what can happen at any time is they have the rights to remove any of these games from their paid service. This is like Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
You are paying for Netflix every month if you pay for it, or Disney Plus or whatever. When you sign to pay for it, there is no contract guaranteeing that next month it will have the same content on it as this month.
No.
And with GoldenEye's insane rights issues, this is something, Nate, I wanted your opinion on, where Rare tried to re-release this game twice.
Yeah.
They remastered it for the Xbox Live Arcade on the Xbox 360, and apparently rights holders pretty much shut that down. And then, of course, they tried to re-release it as part of Rare Replay on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
They shut that down, too. So with all of the strife around that, and it finally coming back, but it being digital only, no disc, at least as of right now, and locked behind membership paywalls where it can be removed anytime. I know this was a bit of a build-up. My question about this whole thing is, who is to say, in a year, that this game will not be pulled?
Well, and that's the problem with something like GoldenEye here. I have a lot of beef with digital media in general, and it's for the exact reasons that you just labeled. But for me, something like the original GoldenEye probably takes the cake for my beef with digital media. Because GoldenEye, at least, the original, has so many rights holders on this game that it's next to impossible to ever get this game re-released.
Mm-hmm.
Your only platform really to buy this game right now in 2023 is the original. You can literally go and buy the original cartridge on the N64 and play the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's never been re-released. It's never been redone. It's never been remastered. It's never been anything, obviously, until now, supposedly.
Well, and I feel like emulation doesn't count.
Well, yeah, besides emulation.
Because I know that it is preserved in that way.
Yes.
And some emulators play this game better than others.
Sure.
I've already talked about that. Like, so, for example, Project 64, I think, has more problems with this game than certain other emulators, right? But when we're talking consoles...
Yeah, besides emulators.
You're right. Official channel releases, it hasn't happened.
No.
And they tried at least twice.
Right. And it's literally because of all the rights around this game.
Yeah.
The rights issues around this game. So to me, putting this game on something like Game Pass or the Nintendo Switch Online, yes, you can still play it. Yes, it might be remastered. Yes, sure. But the problem is, when these 9 trillion companies that all have rights on this game, one of them decides, well, I don't know. I don't know if I really want this on Game Pass. They're just going to pull it.
Right.
I mean, you literally might be playing this game for a month, and then these, 50,000 companies that own this game, supposedly, are just... One of them is going to be like, well, actually, I'm going to be a douchebag today.
Yeah.
Well, now, okay, sorry, you don't own the game.
Well, what's weird about this,
to play it.
too,
Sorry.
is it's supposedly not even really that remastered.
Well, yeah.
It's like the image is cleaned up, but this isn't the remaster that they tried to re-release on Xbox Live.
Right.
Back in the day. That's a separate thing entirely, which I technically am not supposed to encourage this, but I will say is out on the internet, and there are plenty of Xbox 360 emulators that work, and people can play that game right now.
Yeah.
That is out there. Like, anybody can go get that, because a supposedly disgruntled Rare employee that we don't know who it was, and I hope it never comes out, because I know technically what the guy did was probably illegal, or girl, but I'm glad they did it, leaked that remaster onto the internet after years of it sitting in hell. Like, it just was not able to be released.
Yeah.
They had finished it years prior, and somebody was finally like, fine, if you're going to be dicks about it, and it's never going to get out there, we put the work in. Whoops, looks like it's online.
Yeah.
And that got out there, right? And that is preserved. I'm glad that experience is preserved, no matter how it got out there. Because to me, that's kind of like well, if you won't play ball with us, then we won't play ball with you. I think that was pretty justified, even though it's technically probably not legal. It's just frustrating to me, though, because I think a lot of people don't think about this. Because I will agree with you, if you put something on a digital storefront, if you put something on PlayStation 5 tomorrow, like let's say tomorrow they make a Studio Ghibli Totoro single-player game. I'm just making something up.
Right.
And it's digital only. Okay, well, if I can download it, yes, I can get it back. Now, there is still the argument of they can remove it from the store and people can't buy it later.
Well, they can also remove it from your download file.
Yeah, it's weird, kind of like PT, where it was free and now you can't get it.
And that's also with on Steam, Assassin's Creed Liberations, I believe it was. Ubisoft just pulled that.
Yeah, and
like there's people that said they bought the game, it was in their game like list, and it's not there anymore.
Well, and then people put up such a stink that I believe it came back.
Yeah,
finally.
But that should be telling that they can do this to you.
Right, they can make it so you can't re-download it.
Right, just because you paid $20 for the game doesn't mean it's yours forever.
Yeah,
because it's digital.
They let it be yours forever.
Yes,
and I think that's the key word right there. Is even if it's on the store and you can download it, it is from their good grace that they allow you to still download it later.
Yeah, and do you want to know what they can't take away from us? Us picking up GoldenEye Reloaded, our game.
Like on a disc or something.
On a disc.
Well, and that's why
we can walk to our shelf and grab it.
Well, that's my thing is, who does this benefit that it is membership only?
It doesn't benefit anyone. It basically says, oh, hey, here's this game that fans have been waiting for 30 years now. I'll allow you to play the game.
Thank you so much.
That's essentially what they're saying. Right. They're saying, yeah, we'll allow you to play the game for an arbitrary amount of time that we deem so. Have fun with the couple months or maybe a year or however long it's on there. Have fun.
Well, and even if
now we're going to pull it.
I'm going to say, too, because if, let's say it's on there for 5 years.
Yeah.
Someone in 3 years will go back to this video and be like, no, you're wrong, it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I bet at some point it won't be. I bet at some point
someone in your example, someone in 6 years will go back to our example and be like, hey, wow, they were right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that at some point it won't be.
Yeah.
But with a version 1.0 on a disc, yes, there's some games that just suck at version 1.0, and I would not recommend. I go buy Dark Souls Remastered, the disc, and I put it in. Sure, there's patches, but let's say I couldn't access them. Yeah. That patches
He's also
too.
In there.
Let's say I couldn't access those, though. The game's still playable.
Yeah.
It's still beatable.
Yeah.
You know, if I go and I put in Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition on Xbox 360, yes, of course, it's going to be better on Series X with the enhancements.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. But it doesn't need them.
No.
It will still play through from start to finish on the 360. You know what I'm saying? And, like, that's the thing with discs. And that's the thing we've always said and talked about. And I'm sure we'll say it 100,000 times more. And we'll even be saying it when discs aren't around anymore.
Right.
Is that if you have that physical backup, you can always turn that digital. By the way, it is legal to back up your games. People have this misconception. If you own a game, you can back it up onto your hard drives. Mm-hmm. I can take PS2 games and I can back them up and then emulate them on PC. What I can't legally do, now you can easily do, but I'm saying legally, is go download games you don't own and get those and download BIOSes you don't own that are the intellectual property of someone else and use them to make, these things work. But you can legally emulate games.
Mm-hmm.
PS2 is super simple. It's basically just you get your own BIOS, you rip it from your very own console you own. Basically like a code that makes the system work is the easiest way I can explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in there. Then you take your game, you put it in a DVD drive, you copy that with an ISO burner onto your hard drive, and then you just click play on the PlayStation 2 emulator. You change some settings to make it work right, you're in. That's all legal.
Yeah.
People don't understand emulation because you know what people think emulation is? They think it's, oh boy, time to put on my hacker hat. Well, I'm going to go download these games I don't own and I'm going to download this illegal software. And no, there are tons of legal options to emulate games. And there have been people have been emulating GoldenEye forever.
Right.
And that's what's really funny to me about it is that like gamers have preserved GoldenEye
over
and over and over again. But the
company won't.
They can't.
Yeah, because there's so many rights problems.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so frustrated about this, kind of to bring this back around, is because the only way this game will ever be preserved is if they release it on a disc. Right. With all of the problems with the rights issues, it's not guaranteed to ever be around forever. So if they just release it on a disc, then at least it's guaranteed to be there. And
people can keep digitally backing it up if they want to.
Exactly.
That's the thing, is people say, like, discs degrade. You're right, they do. They can eventually degrade. And I'm sure that there are PS2 games that I own that by the time I'm dead probably won't work.
Right.
That's probably true. However, the digital files do work. So if your argument is, well, digital is forever, physical preserves digital. That's what's interesting to me about it, is people want to say, like, well, you don't need physical because digital does it. Well, okay, physical helps preserve digital as well.
Yeah.
All it is it's like a holder for the digital files. So if you can't release it on that as well, it eventually makes it harder to preserve the digital version of a game.
Right.
And with a case like GoldenEye, that's just kind of my hypothetical question. If I'm wrong, I would love that. If in 50 years, GoldenEye is still there, and like my grandkids are loving GoldenEye, you know, and it's still on Xbox Game Pass even then.
Right.
Great. I'm glad I was wrong. But I've seen countless examples where games get pulled, or they get censored, or even sometimes in cases where physical is re-released later, this happens, where there was the Sam and Max games, they were getting new releases on limited run games, and the versions of them that are getting released have certain things censored out.
Oh, okay.
So like there's certain jokes that have been censored or removed. Or here's another example of this, a physical and digital re-release of GTA 5 on the current platforms, which we own this re-release. And I will say I didn't know this before buying it because I did not do my due diligence. It's missing a bunch of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
They lost the license to a ton of songs.
Yeah, that sucks.
So those are gone. And that's a physical and digital re-release.
Yeah.
There are things that are different about it. But you know what has all that content? The PS4 disc.
Right.
The Xbox One disc.
Yeah, you could put that in your console and play it.
It still has all of that. And it's unaltered. And that's kind of why I say that I think people misunderstand physical, is they think that we're just 900-year-old boomers who can't let go of our cassette tapes or something.
Well, we're on our way there.
Right, exactly. The point is, if you are talking preservation of games, and you are telling me that digital preserves games, then you should be all for physical. Because physical helps preserve digital releases, and it prevents people from editing them. It prevents people from censoring them. It prevents people from removing content or adding bad content. Like, there are times where people make updates to games that hurt the games, that change something that they think will make it better, and it makes it worse.
Right.
Physical builds of games where you have, like, the digital files on a physical disc lets you play whatever the game came out as when it was on that disc. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think a couple things to that is a lot of people, one, they don't really care about any of that because they don't care about preserving games. I think people are just so now focused that it's like, I want to play the newest game. That's something like Ghost of Tsushima, which is only a couple years old, by the way, is somehow like an ancient fossil that does never should get touched ever again. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are just like, oh, well, this isn't the newest game, so who cares about this game? So I think that's a whole side of physical media that people don't care about, is because to them it's like, well, I just downloaded the newest game on my computer or my PlayStation and that's fine. And they don't care about anything that came out longer than like 3 years ago.
Right. Are you David Sony right here?
I am David Sony, yeah. But I think that's a whole side of physical media. But I think another side of physical media for me is kind of like what we've been saying all this time is, I think physical media gets such a misconception on it. Like people's idea of physical media is just like either I don't have no space in my house for physical media, even though you could put up a bookshelf.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. It's like a 5 feet, or 4 feet in diameter and whatever feet high. Now you can hold like 100 different things on it. Fine. I already debunked that myth.
Well, look at my shelving units.
Yes.
Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's like I just have a wall where I put up some shelving units. Each shelf unit was $100.
Right.
Now, is that cheap? No. But it's also not nearly as expensive as having to rebuy games in the future if you can't re-access them.
Well, and the other thing is, if you really don't want to put up a bookshelf, go to Office Max or Office Depot and buy a $5 box.
Yeah.
Set up the box in your closet and put your physical discs in there.
At least for the games you care about.
Like, really? Like is this hard?
Well, what about the games you really do care about? What about the games that you do want to be able to go back to? Everybody does have these games. And people will say they don't. I don't believe you. There are games that you have played you will want to revisit.
Yeah.
At least probably 4 or 5 in your life. A huge one on this channel is the Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, Arkham Knight. Look at Arkham Origins. This is a perfect example of it. Really not on modern hardware. I guess you can backwards compatible it on, some stuff, but it looks kind of bad.
Yeah.
And so as time goes on, it's harder and harder to access good versions of that game unless you're on PC, where the digital files have been preserved, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But that also doesn't mean that they will be there forever either. And the thing with having discs, this is why I liked discs for computer games, and why I'm frustrated they're mainly gone, and why I still like them for console, is that you will always have that version 1.0 on the disc.
Well, yeah, at least you have the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem is with physical media, with something like James Bond GoldenEye, 5 years from now, whenever the companies get greedy again, you're not going to have the game. I guarantee it. Again, like you said, if I'm wrong on this, great.
Oh yeah,
I'm happy to be wrong.
I hope we are.
But I have seen this over and over with companies. These companies don't care.
Well, can I mention
they don't care.
We've seen it with James Bond.
Yeah, we've seen it with, like, James Bond is I think the perfect example of this.
Bloodstone is not on Steam anymore.
No.
Did you know that?
You can't buy it.
It was, by the way. It wasn't just, you buy a disc and that's it. There are discs floating around it was early enough in PC gaming before the digital-only era where there are discs. Mm-hmm. But it's no longer buyable on Steam. So guess what? If that disc wasn't out there for PC, you could never get that game again on PC unless you pirate it.
Right.
Isn't that telling? That's a James Bond example. And it's way more recent.
Yes.
It's using Daniel Craig's likeness. He was playing Bond just a couple of years ago, like within the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem with GoldenEye is, when did the original GoldenEye come out? Was it
in the 90s?
The 90s?
Yes.
Okay, it's been 30 years. This game has never gotten remastered. Right. It's never gotten reprinted. It's never gotten remastered. It's never gotten anything. And do you want to know the reason why? It's because these companies are so greedy with their licensing on it that anytime someone tries to do it, someone steps in. It's like, no! And because they own part of the rights of it, they can say no. And they have to jump through so many hoops to release this game that, to me, the fact it's even coming out digitally on Xbox and the Switch, to me is kind of surprising, actually. Mm-hmm. But the second thing is it makes it even more disappointing because I know it's a temporary thing. And I'm just sitting here like, can we get this game so then you greedy companies can do whatever the heck you want to do, but I still have the game.
Right. You hit the nail right on the head. It's even more egregious than it never got remastered or re-released. It got remastered and there was a playable build ready to be released. And that still couldn't happen.
Exactly. So it's like, that's I think what the whole point is if they just release it on the disc, then we have it.
Then
these companies can be as greedy as they could possibly want to be, but at least we have the game.
I have 3 examples, by the way, from James Bond history where this did happen. I know this game's not good. 007 Legends was on Steam.
Yeah.
Not.
Right.
Not anymore. It is on disc. You can still play it. Mm-hmm. Not a good game. I'm just saying.
But at least it's there.
I don't think it's very good, but it exists. Bloodstone. I already said that one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that obviously PC, and it still exists on disc. On both. GoldenEye Reloaded. I don't know if you knew this. I didn't until doing research on it. There is no PC build of this. Did you know that? It was console exclusive only ever.
At all?
Ever.
They never released it on Steam?
Nope, never officially released.
What about the original GoldenEye on the Wii?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, so GoldenEye is a Wii only game.
I didn't know that.
And then GoldenEye Reloaded is PS3 and Xbox 360.
Okay.
That is it. So there was never a physical, PC release. There was never a digital PC release. And now, there is no way to buy digital versions of the game on any storefront. Activision lost the license.
Yeah, of course.
The only copies of GoldenEye Reloaded floating around are discs.
Right.
If that game did not exist on disc, if it was digital only, the only people now who would have any access to it are the people who bought it digitally on console.
Right. Well, and
that's it ever.
And there's plenty of examples of that too. Like, this is a really, really niche game, but it was one of my favorites growing up. Castle Miner Z.
I thought you were going to say Mickey's Speedway.
No, not that. That's on the cartridge on N64.
Okay.
Castle Miner Z for the Xbox 360, I checked on the store, it's gone.
Right.
Because it was a digital-only release.
Yep.
Again, very niche.
Yeah, it was an indie
very
game.
small indie game, I get that. But
well, hey, and it's you supporting indie developers.
It is.
I think you're on the right side of history there.
It is an example.
Battlefield developers would love you.
I know. It is an example of a game that if you had not bought it and downloaded it, you can't own it.
Right.
At all. So, that's the thing with these digital games with GoldenEye and stuff like that. Yes, you're not buying GoldenEye on the Xbox, you're buying the Game Pass so you can play GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think you can download it, right?
No, not
it's
really.
It's just you go on Game Pass and then play it.
Well,
so this is even worse. This is even worse.
With Game Pass, it does install.
Okay.
With Switch, I don't believe they do. They just emulate right there.
Oh.
Like a temporary install. With Game Pass, it does install, but if it's removed from Game Pass, the file is no longer usable.
Okay, so this is basically the same thing. You're basically just buying a key,
right,
to operate this game at the moment, at the whim of the developers,
at the good graces
of
when
they deem that you can operate this game.
Exactly.
This is stupid.
It's like renting a car instead of buying one.
Yeah.
Except at any moment, the people you rented it from could show up and take it from you.
And you don't know when that is.
No matter where you are.
And you don't know when that is.
You could be like driving down the freeway and all of a sudden like a van pulls up and they're like, give us the keys.
Right.
And you're just left there like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do here?
This is even worse.
Even worse than that.
This is a worse problem than that. No, I think this proves the point that we're trying to make so well is anyone...
like how you just gassed us. Because we're making this point so good.
We are.
Can I add to this point, by the way?
Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah.
How many Marvel games were either released disc only or disc and digital, and now the only copies of them are disc?
I'd say almost all of them.
Yeah, go look at like Ultimate Alliance. It came back for a bit on digital storefronts. We bought it when it came back. Mm-hmm. We're not against buying digital games. Right. We buy them when that's the option.
Mm-hmm.
So Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 was gone forever. There are discs of it on a lot of old systems. However, all of those releases are fragmented and different with specific characters to each one.
Mm-hmm.
So finally they got brought back to PS4. We bought them. They are now unavailable again due to licensing issues. Did you know that? It was pulled.
I knew that.
The Amazing Spider-Man games, no longer buyable digitally because they were from the Andrew Garfield era. And that era of Spider-Man is pretty much over, at least, officially, regardless of certain things that have happened. Same, again, Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire movie games. Like, that was kind of before digital for consoles. Discs. That's just where they're preserved. A lot of games, actually, before...
Are we getting the common denominator here?
Well, a lot of games before PS3, Xbox 360 era are only still around because of physical discs or physical cartridges. Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my word. You want to play Pokemon? Yeah, you can download it on the computer. Sure, fine. And most computers can play it. But we're talking official channels of, like, buying a game.
Right, like Pokemon, the original Pokemon Sapphire or something.
Yeah, or Crystal or any of these.
Yeah.
Like, they are harder and harder to come by. And some of them got re-released on 3DS after decades, sure. But for the most part, they've never been re-released, even though they could be re-released at any time super easily. Dude, like, your calculator can run the original Pokemon.
Right, like, exactly.
It's just due to no one caring to do it. You know why? Because it's so much easier to hold the keys to it, and then if you want to remaster it or remake the game or whatever, look at Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. How easy would it be to make a DS emulator? They did it on the Wii U. How easy would it be to just move that to the Switch and re-release, like, every single Pokemon game that was on the Nintendo DS?
It'd take them like an hour.
And why didn't they? Black and White 2. Because now the only way to play those is on those cartridges, back on that hardware, and inevitably when they remake it, like they did with the Sinnoh region, you know, I know this isn't James Bond, but just hear me out. When they remake it like they did with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, that's the only version you can play on modern hardware. So you will buy it. And you don't have the luxury of saying, no, I can already play the original versions on my Switch. It doesn't matter. I don't need that. No, you can't. You cannot.
Yeah.
Why would they make it so you can? That is only for the consumer convenience that you would be able to. And what do they care about? Their money, their convenience. Preservation of games is bad for big gaming companies because it makes it so they can't just re-shit out the same thing later and charge you money for it. Which is exactly what the GoldenEye re-release is a way to get you to buy Nintendo Switch Online and Game Pass Online. Now, do I want to play the game? Yes. I definitely
I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for that.
I'm going to play it on Switch, ironically, because I want to play multiplayer.
Yeah, but, like, let's not delude ourselves into thinking they're doing us a favor.
No.
There is a reason this is being released now, after so long. There is a reason that this is being released the way it is. And that's what I wanted to get at here today is I think people are so excited about the game coming out that they're not thinking about, will it still be out in the future?
That's the bigger problem with GoldenEye is everything you just said about the company being greedy and releasing it when they want to because they want most money and stuff like that. Times that by like 500 when you factor in all the different companies that own the rights to this game. Because now all of their interests have to all be in line to release this game. And that's kind of the problem with this. If they just released it on the disc, I could care less what they want to do with it.
Right, if they want to pull the digital file
if they want to do that
stuff,
in a year from now, whatever, because I have the game. But they're not.
And that's kind of my problem with this, is that there's no guarantee that you will be able to enjoy these things later on. They're just going to eventually leave it behind because it's worth bringing out of the dust once in a while to maybe push a streaming service. This just happened to me with a movie. Jill and I have been watching Sailor Moon, and I know it's not at all in the same vein of James Bond. My interests are wildly different. But Sailor Moon Crystal, the first 3 seasons came out on Blu-ray. Guess what, though? The movie that comes after that, in continuity, Netflix only.
Yeah.
Because it was released in Japan, and then Netflix bought the distribution rights, and they never made a physical.
So here's the thing. When Netflix takes that off, because they will, you can't watch it.
Right.
Have fun watching that part of it, because you can't.
Exactly. If it ever is removed, it's just gone.
Unless you do it illegally.
Right. And that's the frustrating part.
Well,
there's ways around it, but like...
They're all... 90% of them are illegal.
Right.
And that's the problem.
And like, let's be honest, most of us don't care. But it's still like, I don't think a lot of us are sitting around being like, oh, hey, that guy watched a movie.
Right.
No. But the point is, like, it's also on the rights holders and owners to be preserving this stuff. Because it is still art. And it is still stuff that should be enjoyable by future people.
Right.
So, I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. This was a little longer than I thought it would be, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts. It's something I think, Nate, you and I are very passionate about, and it just seems like a lot of people don't care anymore. This is, to me, I will throw in here, I'm not trying to call people idiots, but this is, to me, like the most misguided thing to side with the companies on. You can side with the companies on, like, slurping up every single little thing that they drop out. You can side with the companies on, like, when they shit on a brand like this new Velma show where it's like clearly made just to like piss people off who like Scooby-Doo or whatever, right?
Stop it, you're just racist.
I'm sorry. Well, that has nothing to do with my dislike of Velma. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you can like slurp up all that stuff all you want, whatever.
Right.
But if you're on the side of the company where it's like, well, things shouldn't be preserved, it's like, to me, what are we doing here?
That's just kind of a bad take.
It's just a bad take. Yeah, I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And we will see you very soon in the next one. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shway.